We're ready. We are ready to go to the
You're
table.
saying,
We've been trying.
Debbie, everybody on the Democratic side is saying no wall funding. That's not compromise.
We have not. What we have said is we are for border security. I don't know a single Democrat that is not for national security. But let's do something that's common sense. Like that. By the way, there are hundreds of studies
all these
that say
Democrats
that this border
have voted
doesn't
for
work. We are
barriers
for increased custom border patrol. We're for drones. We're for biometrics. We're for using.
You're making my point, Debbie. You're making my point. You're just saying we'll do anything but what the president says he needs.
But a wall. But
what's the wall going to do? What was the wall
Democrats, you're making the case about something Democrats have voted for, supported in the past, and all of a sudden because the president's for it, you're against it.
Can you, though, tell us what will the wall do? What will the wall do? Because the majority of folks that come into this country undocumented, come in through visas and they overstay their visas.
I agree with that. But that's not that's only one element of the problem.
As many people trying to get into the United States. We are down to a low in illegal immigration to the United States.
Border apprehensions have been falling precipitously since the early 2000s. In fact, during the Obama era, they dropped from 1.6 million apprehensions to only 300,000. The last time there were this few number of apprehensions at the border was in the early 70s, so half a century ago. There is no immigration crisis in this country. There's a right-wing fear-mongering crisis. We can tackle that by turning off Fox News. But if Republicans were so concerned about border security, if it's all of a sudden this massive, pressing national security issue, you'd think that they might have dealt with it when, I don't know, they had control of all three branches of government and decided to give millionaires and billionaires a tax cut that's currently tanking our economy instead. Guess that was a tad more pressing for, national security.
Look, well over 57% of Americans did not support shutting down the government for this border wall. They wanted to avoid this gridlock. They wanted the president to compromise. So even if he hadn't told us he owned it a couple weeks ago, he definitely owns it now. So I think that Democrats are right. They're going to put the bill on the floor, and then the ball will then be back in the Senate and the president's court. If they do not want to compromise, if they do not want to get the government back open, they are just hurting more Americans. The Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, the Department of State, the Department of Agriculture, among other departments, have been affected by this partial shutdown. If y'all thought it was bad when we couldn't eat romaine lettuce a couple weeks ago, think what happens if the Department of Agriculture stays shut down for another 2 weeks. You want our borders to be secure, but the Department of Homeland Security is affected by the shutdown.
Well, look, essential services are continuing. So anything that's considered to be public health and safety, those people are going to work. You're right, they're not getting paid, but they will eventually get paid. But everyone who's an actual government employee will get paid. Now, government contractors won't get paid, and that's a lot of people these days. They won't get paid, but everybody else will get paid, and essential public health and public safety things will be continuing.
We shouldn't be playing games with these people's lives. Let's start there.
I agree.
These people are not Republicans or Democrats. They're public servants.
Now, we knew that the GOP is not in favor of labor protections or even a living wage, but I really didn't see work for free as the next step here. And yes, there will be back pay when the government reopens, but not everyone can afford to tide themselves over for an indeterminate amount of time. Not everyone gets a cushy job like Rick Santorum as, say, a paid co-chair of a biofuels advocacy group, Americans for Energy Security and Innovation, where CNN allows him to peddle climate change denial to a national audience. The rest of us rely on weekly or bi-weekly checks to, eat.
This idea that putting up a wall is going to do something, what it's going to do, it's going to invoke eminent domain. We're going to have lots of problems in that arena. And who's going to build that wall, by the way? Who's going to stand in 105-degree weather down on the Texas-Mexico?
We've built lots of walls. I mean, there's hundreds and thousands.
Who's going to build it is a bunch of Mexican immigrants. That's who's going to end up building it. And we are preventing people from coming into the United States that we need. We are in a labor shortage right now. Employers are desperate for workers. And the president doesn't just want to cut down illegal immigration. He wants to reduce legal immigration, and that is a travesty.
I mean, a wall? It's going to be 2019, and the best the GOP can come up with is a wall? This party is so desperate to go back in time that it's actually limiting its solutions to whatever it'd see in an episode of Game of Thrones. One day the Republican Party will allow itself to enter the 21st century. It'll be 100 years from now, but hey, apparently progress on the right takes a long time. Santorum and an ever-shrinking GOP base can continue advocating for medieval solutions and scare tactics for problems that don't exist. The same tactics, by the way, that led to a brutal midterm cycle for Republicans. But if they want to dig in their heels for a strategy that lost once at the polls, a strategy that relies on Americans to be uninformed and scared, so be it. 2020 is just around the corner, and Republicans have everything to lose.